Okay, so welcome to this latest in the Uniface lectures series. Today we're going to be talking about JavaScript. I'm Mike Taylor. I'm product manager here at Uniface, so just talking basically about JavaScript. So in order to be able to use Uniface in the web, what we have enabled you to be able to do is to integrate with JavaScript. And now we're aware that JavaScript is slightly different from what a lot of people have used in the past. So we just wanted to give you a bit of a general overview of one, the language, and two, how to use it in conjunction with the Uniface and what it can offer you. So what we're going to do is going to go through, not at a very deep level, but quite at a high level in JavaScript. It's not going to be, as I say, massively in depth, but it should give you a good grounding so you can automate websites and use JavaScript in conjunction with Uniface and our DSP solution. After we've gone through a load of the JavaScript basics, we're going to have a quick look at JavaScript API for DSPs while running a full DSP solution. And then going from the other side of integrating DSPs into existing websites. And when you do this, then you don't really have a choice. It has to be done via JavaScript. But it's not a scary thing. It's pretty easy to come to grips with. So what is JavaScript? It's a programming language. It was started as a way to be able to automate web pages in web browsers. It's a very high level, and it is very forgiving with types, it's a very forgiving language. It's dynamic, which allows you to be able to generate your code as it's being loaded, and that code, when generated or when loaded, is an interpreted language. Okay, so it's downloaded as script and then probably pre-compiled when it gets downloaded. It's standards based, and if you want to find out more about it, then the ECMA script, as is that second line there, should give you plenty of information about it. Over the course of the last few years, there has been some very large name players who have got involved in optimizing JavaScript as much as can be optimized. One of the biggest names is Google. So in their WebKit browser, they have what they call the V8 engine, and it is a culmination of these years of effort to make it as fast as possible, and it is a very impressive piece of kit. What it basically does is allows web pages and the automation of the web pages to be almost as if running native code within a browser. So you can create some very efficient and very fast running applications. The history of JavaScript is that it was designed in order to be able to deal with what is called the document object model. It is the structure of a web page. It is each thing that's on the web page, each container, each field, each piece of text is basically within this document object model. And using JavaScript, you can traverse through this and be able to update it and manipulate your page at will. Okay. So that's where it came from, and it's, as I say, it's become ubiquitous throughout the web environment. It is worth noting that JavaScript is not Java. Okay, Java is a very much more strict language. It takes a great deal more expertise to be able to use it. JavaScript is a considerably easier language. It has been described that Java is a bit like Star Trek, very clean and precise, whereas JavaScript is a bit like Star Wars, a bit flexible, a bit. So, but it gives us an ability to be able to automate things in the web very easily. So the first thing to know about JavaScript is that you load it within web pages. So the way you do this is you put it within a script tag. You define it as the type of JavaScript, and from within there you can start adding your JavaScript code. When it is when the web page is loaded, what you will find, and this is quite a useful thing to know, what you will find is that as it encounters the JavaScript, that is when it will be executed. Yeah. So as it goes through the page, if you've put the JavaScript in the head, it will be loaded before the body is displayed. But if you put it at the very end of your document, you'll find that the body is being loaded, and then the JavaScript is being executed. So it's worth understanding that where you put the JavaScript on a page is very useful. It is possible to set the JavaScript loading to be asynchronous, but then you have to be more careful about that you don't have race conditions within it. It's worth noting that when using JavaScript with Uniface, with 9701, you are now able to define the location where that JavaScript from Uniface injected into your page. So you have a bit of control over that now. So you've got your JavaScript, you've managed to put something onto the screen, but you need to do some programming, and all programming languages give you the ability to be able to store some data. So in JavaScript, these are called variables. You define a variable by just saying var variable name. If you don't declare it, so if you don't have var variable name, JavaScript will create that object in the very highest level it can, rather than in the context of your current function. Okay. When you are using variables and you've declared them and you're going to use them, JavaScript will first of all look in your current function for that variable, for the value for it. If it can't find it, it will go to the parent. If it can't find that, it will go to its parent, and so on, all the way up to the global namespace, which is the very top level. If you don't declare it, then it can quite possibly have quite a path to get to find this variable name. So therefore, you could be introducing some performance hit within your application. It's also fairly similar to a Uniface general variable, the $1 to $99. And it has the same problems. If you declare it in the global namespace at the very highest level, or you don't declare it at all, you will find you could have situations where the values are being overwritten when you don't expect it to be. So it's much easier if you can, and better, to declare these variables and use them as locally as possible. So a variable can contain any data type, and you don't have to declare the data type when it's being created. Okay. If you assign it a string, then the variable becomes a string variable. If you assign it a number, it will reassign it to be a number. Okay. It is probably good coding practice to not keep on swapping the data type. While it's optimizing, it sort of optimizes for the data type and then has to re-optimize or de-optimize to change the data type. So it's a good idea to sort of stick to one data type in a variable. Data types can be string, number, Boolean, array, object, or undefined. You'll find that there are other kinds of data, so you can have a date or a time, but you'll find these actually end up as being objects. Okay, objects are sort of slightly more advanced topic than we're going to be covering here today. Array. So string variable or strings are assigned by surrounding the data with quotes. Numbers don't have quotes; they're just numbers. Boolean is true or false. An array is defined as being a list of data, comma separated and surrounded by square brackets. So in my array there, you have a square bracket, you have Volvo, Saab, and Ford, and close square bracket. Okay. It's also worth noting that you should always put a semicolon at the end of every line or every statement. Statements can be split across many lines, so at the end of the statement. If you want to get data out of an array, you use an index to get there. Indexes in JavaScript always start at 0. Okay, so my array 0 in this example will return you Volvo. Okay. 1 will return you Saab, 2 will return you Ford. Okay. We also have a different type of data, which is an object. These are fairly simple objects. So these are surrounded by curly braces. they have a identifier. So here, myProperty1 : and then ABC. The colon is a separator. It needs to be there between every property name and its value. You then comma separated, then the next property name and its value. So myProperty2 and 1000. If you want to get data out of one of these objects, you have a full stop separator. So here, myObject.myProperty1. It is also possible to do this dynamically. So myObject and then passing in a string within square brackets. That gives you, and that's a quoted string. So that gives you the ability to substitute with a variable if you wish to do that. Okay, so you can make it more dynamic. Okay, so next up, that's variables. Next up is functions. So if functions are basically blocks of code designed to perform a particular task. A JavaScript function is executed when something invokes it. So here we have a function. It's defined by having the keyword of function, followed by a name. Okay. The name is actually optional. There are times when you don't have to supply a name, and we'll see one of them later on in the presentation. Within parentheses, within the brackets, you can also supply parameters. Parameters are input only. In JavaScript, you do not have the concept of input-output. If you do need to return a value, then you can do it from the return statement from within the function. That can return any kind of data, including objects and arrays and just plain straight data. So once you've got your functions and your variables and you've got a bit of coding within your JavaScript, what you'll rapidly find is it starts becoming quite big. To keep your JavaScript and your HTML clean, it's a good idea to sort of encapsulate all your JavaScript into separate files. So it can be one or multiple files. So where we just had the script tag earlier, and within it the JavaScript, it is also possible to load it as a separate file. So all we've done here is we've added the source tag, src is equal to, and then my JavaScript file. And then it will load it and treat it as if it was in line when it's being loaded. Okay? So this allows you to be able to improve some loading times because the browsers are able to load several files at the same time. It increases readability, which because you don't have both JavaScript or a lot of JavaScript embedded in your HTML file, that becomes more readable. And you can also encapsulate your functionality into separate files. It's the way, if you get third-party tools and utilities, that's how you will load their environments. So you will include a script tag, and then you'll be able to use it. And this is pretty much how you would integrate Uniface into an existing website. So conditions. All programming languages, and JavaScript included, requires conditions. It's the only way of being able to create decisions within a programming language. So conditions show. So here we have two different kinds of conditions. There is a third one, which is a question mark. But here we have the if statement. We have a condition which will cause the code to be executed if it evaluates to true within parentheses, and then we have the curly braces showing the code that will be executed. If you have more than one condition, so you can have an else if statement, that again has within the parentheses something that would evaluate to true. Okay, the curly braces again show you the code that will be executed for it. There's obviously an else block at the end. There is also a switch statement, much like Uniface, where you have a switch statement with a value, and then it's evaluated against particular strings or other values. The case statement will execute the code that's within the case statement. If there is no break, then it will just roll on to the next case statement and to the next one until it hits a break. At the break, it will come out of the case statement altogether. So in this example, we have a switch A. So it will, under the case statement A, it will run the first line of code, the console.log A. In B, it will, because there's no break, it will go straight into B and log B as well. But then there is a break, so it will drop out. If it doesn't match at all, it will run the default. So when doing these valuations, there are different ways of different operators to determine whether it's true or false. So we have the double equals, which is equal to. Under these conditions, if you have a double equals and you have the number 1 evaluated to the string containing the single character of 1, then it will be returned. It will be evaluated as true. If you have the triple equals, it will be evaluated as false. Okay, so the triple equals gives you both type and value comparison. Okay, the rest of them are fairly standard, apart from maybe the last one, the question mark, which gives you the ability to determine if the equation is true, then it returns the first value. If it's false, then it returns the second value. So have a look at ternary operators. Yeah, I probably should have put something in there. We also have loops. Okay, so we have the while loop, again very much similar to Uniface. Again, you have the evaluation, you have the block of code within the curly braces. Obviously, this will continue looping through the code while it's evaluated as true. We also have the do while, again the same as Uniface, the block of code within the curly braces, and then the evaluation. It will continue running through it until it's no longer true. There is also a for loop. Okay, so with the for loop, there are three parts to it. So you have the first part, which is here I equals 0. This is run once when the loop starts. Yeah, we have the I is equal to 5, less than 5, which is the evaluation part. So the loop will continue to run while that is true. And last but not least, we have the iterator. So this is run after every loop. So when it gets to the end, it will run the I++, therefore giving you something which you can increment. Okay. You have the break and continue statements as well, which are available within loops. You can optionally also continue to a particular label. A label is defined as a label name : There are also more advanced. So we've gone through a lot of the basic JavaScript functionality. We've gone through it very quickly. Obviously, the slideshow is going to be available to give you some kind of reference point if it's useful to you. But there are more advanced features or more advanced functionalities, and some of them might or might not be useful for you. If the more JavaScript you're using, the more of them you'll probably come across. But if you're interested in finding out some pretty useful functionality, but slightly more advanced, then I would recommend having a look at objects, and especially constructors and prototypes. These give you a way of being able to create objects which can create separate individual instances with common interfaces and unique data per instance. And so they're very useful. Another important topic within JavaScript, but again an advanced feature, is something called closures. Closures are a way of being able to encapsulate functionality so that you can when you're loading your JavaScript, you can encapsulate some things. Variables are all completely contained within it. It's quite a complex subject, and also extremely difficult to explain. Errors and exceptions are always very useful. So you have within the JavaScript the try and the catch blocks, etc. But they're worth looking up if you're going to be creating lots of JavaScript code, or you're going to be creating JavaScript code. because it allows you to be able to create robust applications. So we've covered pretty much a good selection of the basics in JavaScript. They should offer you some good functionality to be able to integrate with the Uniface. So we're going to now go on and have a look at how to include JavaScript in Uniface and use our JavaScript API.